turning a blind eye that had happened in the church for years. It's like we'll shuffle you around, and I know there's a bunch of reasons that, well, maybe they thought this and this and this at the time. I don't care. What I'm talking about right now is a willingness to compromise and an unwillingness to be courageous when it came to brother priests, when it came to bishops. It's terrible. But here's something I want to also say. Because the next thing people were saying is like, well, we just want you to know that you're as angry as us. I'm like, I can't convey to you how angry I am. The next thing they asked was, well, did you know about all this stuff? Like, you as a priest, the thing with Archbishop McCarrick, like this whole kind of like this grooming of, homosexual predatory behavior happening in seminaries and then in the hierarchy or in the dioceses and stuff. Do you guys all know all about all those things? And I have to say, I didn't. When it came to this abuse stuff, did you know? Do you have any sense? And I just have to tell you, I think for the most part, I'm just a normal priest, right? Like, I'm an average priest in my diocese doing my stuff. Had no idea. When it came to this kind of like this stuff in seminary, that just I read about when it came to the story of Archbishop McCarrick. People ask me, is that what seminary is like? Like, no. In fact, when I went to seminary, before I went there, I read a book that my mom had given me called Goodbye, Good Men by Michael S. Rose. And it was all about exposing just the corruption and terrible stuff in American seminaries in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so I got there in 1998. And I was on alert. I read a book that said all about some of the garbage and stuff that's happening there. And it wasn't on my radar. Why? Because I think the seminaries had been cleaned up enough by then. In fact, I remember talking with a priest after I was ordained. He became the rector of St. John Vianney Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. Father Bill Bear, he just died recently. May he rest in peace. Good man. He was the kind of character of the person that you'd say, because of guys like him, those who would likely to abuse would never get past his door. They would never get past his gate. In fact, I remember him sharing this with me that he'd have guys that they would say, okay, this behavior was evil, inappropriate. It lent itself towards possibly he'd be a person who would disordered sexuality, basically. And these guys would be crying in his office, keep me in here. And he said, I'd rather have you cry in my office than in years some mom and dad cry in my office because I let you out. I said you were fine to pass through formation, pass through seminary, and be ordained. He said, I'd rather have you cry here than anyone be hurt by you and see them have to cry. And then it's my fault. Because that's the kind of priests I know. You guys, just so you know, the kind of priests that I've encountered are not these who abuse. And the kind of bishops I've encountered are not those who compromise. In fact, I have our bishop here up in Duluth is awesome. His name is Bishop Paul Serba. And Bishop Paul, he's so gentle, right? He's so kind. If you ever met him, you're just like, oh my gosh, this man is so kind. He's so gentle. But I describe him as like a carpeted wall. What I mean by that is because you go up to him like, oh, he's soft, he's gentle, he's kind. You push against it, it's like, oh my gosh, this guy does not compromise. When it comes to any kind of abuse stuff that would come across his desk, he's a man who would be kind. He does not compromise in any way, shape, or form. When it comes to protection of youth, when it comes to protection of anyone, here's a man who has an iron will. Same thing with Archbishop Hebda, the other bishop I know down in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and other bishops that I've encountered. This is my experience. Is I've never met a compromising bishop. I don't think, at least.
My Story of Pride, Part 5, with the Pride series and Part 2 of my story. First of all, I wanted to get this out. A few weeks ago, I was walking my dog, Bo, who was famous on the show. Anyways, I was walking him in a trans, and the parents in the car on the street light yelled, I hate trans. Why are you trans? This subject was sad to me. I felt we had made progress in issues or LGBTQ, whether trans should be able to take a hormonal pill became political. Just stop with the asking questions, why are people trans? Does it matter? a person showed up to the coffee place across the street from me and asked, "How many trains have you had come to the cash register today? Stop and be kind is the lingo. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all." For the spectrum of what's going on, looking for 1 is not gay at all, 10 is totally gay. Most people fall in the range of 2 to 7, and little fall into 9 to 10. For my senior year, Father Wilson continued to ask all the questions. I know it was a long time ago, but I don't recall everything. And traumatic events. I got in trouble a lot, for particularly one teacher, and I had to go sit down. Father Wilson, who is the one who would stick up for me with calling names for me when somebody pushed me, and although he'd ask me weird questions when I got out of class, he would also stick up for me when kids told me to shut the blank up, or also when some kid poured powder on my clothes. His way of sticking up for me may have been manipulation, or it could have been that he was nice most of the time, and I tend to lean that way. But I do think Father Wilson, for the time being we're calling him that, continued to ask weird questions until one day he said something really bad. And then I think he decided, I can't abuse one more person. I like to think that's why he told him to stop. We'll talk more about this later and talk about a note that he wrote to me that was very nice. We'll play a few Patrick Mahomes clips. Patrick Mahomes says his ankle will be tested this offseason.
Hear a little bit from the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, as he was at the podium earlier. I know we've got weird numbers, or we're going to hear what Patrick Mahomes had to say. He was at the podium, of course. Seen a lot of Patrick Mahomes. Seen a lot of Patrick Mahomes on the Netflix. Let's hear a little bit of Patrick Mahomes. Let's start with the news about his ankle. How healthy is the ankle? Is it good to go for camp?
Yeah, it feels great. I think even going into OTAs a little bit, I still was a little timid about running and cutting and doing stuff like that. But when I got kind of through, like, closer to vet mini camp and that later OTA stage, I got that confidence back in my ankle. And I'm sure I'm not going to be running a lot right now, but we'll be testing it, especially in these half gassers. So I'll make sure that it's ready to go, and I think I'm in a good spot with it.
All right, he's in a good spot. We'll make sure it's ready to go, but I think it should be pointed out. Let's be realistic. He wasn't like, oh, God, yeah, it's fine. It's been fine forever. We're going to test it. So I want to point out what he needed on that ankle. We're still not 100%. Now, I think he's probably 100%, but we talked about when that happened, that's a minimum 4-week injury that you are out. If that had happened in the regular season, particularly with the Chiefs in good stead in the division, he would have sat for a long time. Instead, he kept playing. They will test the ankle, to quote one Patrick Mahomes. Hopefully it will test well. I think it probably will, but this is an injury that's taken quite some.
Ratcheting up the rookies when they hit the field tomorrow, but today in present tense. Let's discuss the show Quarterback. It is a good show starring Marcus Mariota from the Falcons. Of course, he lost his jobs, but did he do something else last season? That will be answered on the show, starring Kirk Cousins, of course, and it wouldn't be a show without Patrick Mahomes. It is rated number 1 on Netflix right now. It also stars in their family life and the challenge of playing of the quarterback position. Also, Patrick Mahomes says it's quite the challenge not getting the plays out to the public. Sarin Petrov, Sports Radio 810, says the Chiefs have the best shot of winning the Super Bowl according to the stats of plus 600.
You know, Adam, I think we'll have enough time, but let's see how this all goes. I'd be curious to talk to him. I haven't seen him yet, and Rick is likewise going to talk to him. So